testing. We are live.
We are
live.
Live from Studio B.
Studio B of
Live
the
from Study Room B.
Study Room B in the
It's the
West Aurora branch,
in
right?
the
Branch?
West Branch Library of Aurora, Illinois. It is the Cine-Scoots podcast. With our How I Met Your Mother in the Summer series.
How I Met Your Mother in the Summer.
Yes, season 3. No more of this episode bullshit today.
No, today we're doing season 3.
Season 3.
Season 3. Just again, for our listeners, I am Javier.
I'm Thano. And we are covering every season of How I Met Your Mother, this fine summer sequence.
Mm-hmm.
We did season 2 last episode. This episode we'll be focusing on season 3. Once again, looking at some character arcs, how and when, or how the season begins and ends, and then any other sort of tangential information that we want to talk about. But this episode we also have our list of Marshall moments.
Marshall moments.
Initially sappy Marshall moments, but then we changed it to goofy/sappy Marshall moments.
Which I think describes Marshall's character very well.
And I think I'll make the executive decision that I feel my moments fit within that category, but I am fine with us being very liberal with the definition of goofy/sappy.
I would say that mine, there are maybe one or two that are goofy, but they still fall within that, like, Marshall is kind of a goof, kind of silly, kind of,
yes,
in touch with his inner emotional self.
So before we get into the details of the season, I would actually like to put you on the spot again. And of all the best characters in How I Met Your Mother, why is Marshall the best character?
Oh, you're making that executive decision.
I'm making that executive decision.
Ah, man.
First of all, Marshall is my favorite character. Is he your favorite character, or do you have a different one?
I feel like, as someone who has been in a very long, very good committed relationship,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I am drawn to Marshall than Lily a lot. I'm not sure that I would say he's my 100% favorite. There's things about all the characters that I like.
Yes.
They all have their reasons, right? Why I could. I'm not gonna sit here and argue and say no, Marshall is not the best character.
Right.
Because I think out of the main cast, you could make the argument for almost everybody.
Right.
If I were to play devil's advocate and say yes, Marshall is 100% the best character, I think it's his loyalty. Like, I think out of all the characters, he shows the most loyal tendencies.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever done anything throughout the series that you would go, damn, like that was selfish.
Yes.
With the exception of maybe applying for the judgeship.
The judgeship without telling Lily.
But I mean,
but that had special circumstances around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So other than that, like, I feel like that to me is why he falls under one of the reasons why he would be the best characters.
I find Marshall most interesting because it seems like he's someone who's lived his glory days. Right? And when I say glory days, I distinguish that from best days. I feel like Marshall very much is living his best life.
Mm-hmm.
But like he had his own brand of wildness that's different than like Barney's or Ted's wildness. That's behind him now. He is ready to.
He's ready to be a dad.
He is ready to be a dad. It's an enjoyable character for me.
Yeah,
and he's consistent, loyal, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Segel, fantastic job. The fact that even if it's been through his own will, the fact that man has not gotten. The fact that we have not had more Jason Segel content in these past few years
bullshit.
Is a crime.
Is
a crime.
It should not be.
Yeah. So we'll get back to Marshall at the end. But for me, I consider seasons 3 through 6 kind of in like an arc in the show. Like they're their own chunk. So season 1 and 2 for me are the Ted and Robin relationship. Will they? Won't they? Then you have this chunk of seasons where you have Stella, and then eventually Zoe, and some other minor, sometimes one-off flings in between. But I forget if it's at the beginning of season 6 or at the end of season 6 where they start that framing device of having this mystery wedding that closes and opens each season.
Yes.
And it's eventually Barney and Ted and Robin's wedding. I think it's the last episode of season 6. But 3 through 5 for sure, for me, fit into like I consider those seasons one big package, right? And I think it largely deals with Ted's relationships where you know he's not with he's not with the one. He's not with Robin, right? So it's very much an intern set of seasons, but this is the season specifically where the Barney Robin romance starts a blooming.
Yes.
So with that being said, where do you think is a good place to start when examining our character arcs for this season?
So I think we can probably start with Marshall and Lily, because if I'm being honest, looking back and thinking about the episodes, they have the least amount of things to do in the season.
Yes.
As far as like big things, right? Yes, this is when they start looking for a new place to live. They do, I believe, move out in this season when they get their house in Dois Tripla.
Yeah.
But other than that, there really is no big change for them, which is perfectly fine considering that we had a whole season in season 2 devoted to them going through this like life-altering change of getting back together, reestablishing the relationship, and finally getting married, right? Yeah. So, I mean, that really is just almost all there is to them.
Yes.
Right?
Marshall does get the offer from Jefferson Coatsworth to work in his big evil law firm, at the expense of his dream to be an environmental lawyer.
Yeah, because this is the season where he passes the bar.
Yes.
Which is where we get a lot of really fun like insights into some of the characters and how they see each other. We see that Lily likes to chew really loudly.
Yeah.
We all know that Barney uses catchphrases. They do kind of plant in here that Robin uses literally a lot.
Yeah.
Which I do think kind of plays in like throughout the series. But I think the one that we really do see a lot is Ted correcting people.
Yes.
And just kind of being like a little pretentious.
And that's just consistent.
Yeah,
that goes beyond the gag.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we do get the with Marshall, we get the thing that he likes to kind of like sing a lot.
Yes.
And he does.
Yeah.
Marshall is a very musical man.
He's full of joy.
He is
full of joy.
Every once in a while, I'm just sitting around doing whatever, and I just go apple orchard, banana cat dance 8663, and that is the password for his bar exam.
Yeah.
And it sticks.
Yeah.
Other than that, Lily, this is where she gets her bangs.
Right.
I can't remember. Did you say this was hottest Lily for you?
No, I don't like the bangs.
Okay.
But after Lily gets the bangs removed, but still keeps that same hair color, that is hot.
That is okay.
Yeah.
I can't remember because we were talking about it, and you had mentioned like season 3 is hot as Lily, and I was like, the bangs?
Yeah.
I was kind of confused for a second.
No.
Like the parted, kind of like to the side.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I think what's interesting about this season for Marshall and Lily is it's the beginning of them having to really question their ideals of like what they expect out of their lives, right? Specifically for Marshall. So I mentioned Jefferson Coatsworth. This is the season, I believe, where you meet Artillery Arthur.
Yes.
In the Chain of Screaming, right? So, Marshall starts on this road that, like, even though he wants to be this big environmental lawyer, he realizes, like, money is money is money and work is work.
You can't live off of goodwill.
Yeah, and sometimes you got to work for the devil, which I think, way back on our intro episode, we talked about a show being a product of its time. And I read a lot of criticism of the show back then, that the show seems to sort of take the side that it's okay to compromise your ideals for practical economic security. Right. Specifically in the character of Marshall and other characters, where you see them kind of just like take the well-paying job instead of like the job that's going to do like,
Hey man, listen, sometimes it do be like that.
Bills is bills.
Bills is bills.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how, if at all, How I Met Your Father plays with that. I mean, so far the closest it's gotten is, what's Hilary Duff's name?
Sophie.
Her little arc with her being a photographer, and then Josh Peck, Drew, being like,
like, this is just a hobby.
This is
like,
not a real job. And then she gets offended, and the show kind of tells you that she has, the right to be offended. Mm-hmm. Which I get, and at the same point, I think that show, that came out in January, was the first episode of that.
Yeah.
So How I Met Your Father is running through January, February, March. I don't know if this is the same experience for you, but those are the months where I most think about not teaching anymore.
Yeah? Yeah?
And ironically, even though Drew is the principal, that is where I kind of empathize with Drew. I'm like, hey man, like, values is values, kids is kids, but, money in a 9-to-5 is money in a 9-to-5.
Yeah. That's steady income.
Yeah, and I think How I Met Your Mother kind of takes the argument that money in the 9-to-5 is okay. You're right. Your ideals are never going to go as you planned they are, but you will be surprised as to the cool places where your choices will lead you, which comes later down the road.
And also, one thing that we have to consider is, at this point in the show, these guys are as old as we are right now.
Yeah.
Ted turns 30 this season.
Yeah.
And I think he's the oldest. Except for...
Well, they're all the same. At least he, Marshall, and Lily are at least the same year.
But they make a point to saying that Ted is the first to hit it.
Yeah.
And then... Because they make that joke when when Barney and Robin sleep together later in the season, they make the joke like, "Oh, you're the first to hit it," and he's like, "She has a name." So, like, I think it implies that he might be the oldest. Yeah. Which, when you're that age and you are financially struggling, right? And I'm using air quotes in this show because if you look at the apartment they live in, like, holy shit.
This season, by the way, premiered in 2007, finished airing in 2008. Keep talking. I'm going to do a little Googling of stats real quick.
Sure. But, I mean, as far as, like, the career of a lawyer goes, like, you can't expect to start making the big bucks right away with, like, what you want to do, per se, right?
Yeah.
So, like, there's always got to be a stepping stone. And, like, sometimes you have to take a job that you're not super proud of just to get to a financial point where then you can take that risk.
Yeah.
So I think it's perfectly acceptable for Marshall to take the job working for, quote-unquote, the Devils and the Man. If it then means that later on in his life he is at a point where he is able to take the risk to interview with, what's his name, Harrison Coots?
Yes.
Is it Harrison? Something Coots. Jefferson Coots.
Jefferson Coots. Well, no, because Jefferson's the...
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Marty Short.
Yeah. So that's more or less kind of where I think of of that dynamic.
So here's a question that I've never actually done the research on. Are entire seasons filmed and completed before their premiere date? Or no? So there's filming going on in between.
They're usually maybe about a month ahead, month or two.
Well, so anyway, this premieres in, like I said, September 2007. A quick little Google says that the Great Recession kind of starts in December 2007.
Yeah, the 2008 recession.
Yeah, so it's at least coming from the beginning of a place where our relationship with work, money, and corporate life is just very
different.
Very different.
So I wonder if you were to look at the criticisms that you mentioned. I hadn't seen those criticisms before. If you were to show this to people right now, I wonder what their response would be.
Yeah.
Because I feel like right now, a lot of the times people are like, dude, like, sucks, but money's money. Like, you need the money. Yes, there's some people who are like, follow your dreams, man.
But then there's also that argument of, like, ethical capitalism, right? Like, don't work for Amazon. Don't shop at Amazon, right? I think that is more in our conscience now. Not that, like, entire audiences would just, like, reject this arc. But I think it fits much better in pre-recession than it does currently. But I agree. Money. Money is money.
Money is money.
Yeah.
Anything else that you would like to say about Marshall and Lily before we?
I don't even talk that much about Lily. I'm trying to think if there's anything that kind of sticks out. I feel bad. We just talked about her bangs.
Well, this is also where we start to see a lot of her struggles with art.
Yeah.
We see that she has a bunch of credit card debt.
Yeah.
That is a big thing that we learn about her.
Oh, I forgot. People hate this with them. Oh, but wait. It's their first Thanksgiving as a married couple this season.
This is where we get one of my favorite quotes of all time.
Yeah.
I made Jello shots.
Yeah.
We's gonna get silly, bitches.
Her dad is not in the season, right?
Her dad is not in the season.
But this is, like you said, the credit card debt, which a lot of people take Lily to task over.
But I mean, that is a legit issue that a lot of people have.
Circling back to product of its time, that very much is a problem. Like, go watch The Big Short and then go watch this season, and, like, there was just this illusion that you could live beyond your means. And
just use those lines of credit, and that's a problem for future you. And this is eventually where it catches up to her.
Yeah.
Not realizing that now that they're together, she has to kind of air these things out with him. Yeah. And in a way, I understand being upset with her about this, because it is financially irresponsible not to share these things with your significant other.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I get it.
I totally get it. And I think that dovetails nicely with Marshall's arc of not necessarily going into his dream job right away. Yeah. Because, marriage isn't all sunshine and roses.
This is the season where they introduce the comically large bottle of champagne.
Yes.
And there's a scene where they have Marshall just sitting at the bar, sad and lonely, hugging a giant bottle of champagne. He's like, well, money's tight these days. Get out of the way. It always hits so good.
It hits you. But I think that's,
But we do get the... Again, this is where it comes to going off of what we started with, why Marshall could be... You can make the argument that he's the best character in the show.
Right.
He stands with her through this.
Yep.
She says, you know what, let's do a formal divorce. That way, on paper, everything is, separate.
Yeah.
We can get the apartment under your name only, and that way my bad credit will not impact us, right? And he says, no, he's like, I married you for you, regardless of what issues may come.
Thick and thin.
Through thick and thin. Yeah. So there's that. When it comes to the her artwork, he helps her set up means of selling her art to veterinarians.
Yes.
So that they can calm down dogs and kill birds.
And kill birds. Yeah.
And you know, again, those are just little things that again, they're not super drastic changes. They're not going to like uproot the status quo of Lily and Marshall.
But they are accomplishments.
But they are, yes,
Yeah.
and they are slight, character progressions.
Yeah.
They are not static throughout the season either.
Yes. I think that's enough to say about them.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Probably we could tackle Robin and Barney almost.
Yeah,
together.
I think they should fit together.
They would fit together in this.
Yeah.
This, I think I mentioned that one of the reasons why this season rated so low on my list, I rated it number 7 out of the 9, was because of the whole subplot with
Barney and Ted. Yeah.
So to get into that, this is a season where Barney starts to kind of feel... Maybe he lets his guard down a little bit.
He gets the feelings.
He gets kind of a little bit of the feelings. It's not until like season 4 where the feelings really kind of...
Ignite.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where he's not as open about them. Because I think it's like in one of the first couple of episodes, he has Lily over and he's like, I got feelings.
Yeah.
He's like, this is a disease.
Yeah.
Like, get rid of it. But this is the season where we find Robin's second song, Saying Castles in the Sand.
Yep.
We get a lovely guest appearance from Dawson.
From Dawson.
From Dawson's Creek.
And early on, lest we forget, our Argentinian flame boy.
Yes!
Gael. Who I did not realize was Enrique Iglesias.
Really?
Until very recently.
I
always thought Enrique Iglesias was older.
Really?
To be honest with you.
Yeah, no, he was young in this.
He was young.
Very young.
He was young.
I'm surprised he sticks around for 2-3 episodes?
Yeah, it is very satisfying to see Robin chase out him and those hippies with a gun.
With the shotgun.
With a gun. It was Summer Robin. She put Summer Robin to bed.
Yeah, Summer Robin. There's a time and place for Summer Robin.
Yeah,
and that belongs in summer.
Were you at the beginning of this season? Were you as annoyed with Robin as Ted was upon your first watches?
I don't think I was as annoyed as Ted was. I was just like, these things happen. I wasn't as annoyed that she pursued other romantic interests. No. I was more conservative in those days and just like the hippie aesthetic, like these fucking hippies.
Yeah, so when Enrique's like, taste your food, and then she buys into it, I'm like, oh.
But here's the thing, right? Like that to me always rung as, this is like some Ted shit too. In a different way.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, think about it. Like, the drum roll, like, it's the exact same dumb thing.
If Ted was sexy and Latino, then he would be Enrique Iglesias.
That's exactly what he would be.
Yeah.
So, like, that's why I was like, this makes sense as to why.
The show never explicitly hints at that, does it?
At what?
That she's effectively dating...
A Ted?
No, I don't think so. They do have that cool moment in the apartment hallway afterwards, where Ted like confronts her, and then she's like, "Yeah, I was sad too, but like."
Oh yeah, he's like, I didn't get a chance to like have a shouting match with you about this breakup. Like we were amicable, but like now we gotta hash this out.
Which now, in my later rewatches, and now I will say that. I found that to be kind of contrived. Not totally contrived. But a lot of the cues in season 2 really do seem like they put this to bed, right? Like their amicability seems genuine. It does seem that even though Ted is sad, he's still ready to move on, and she's still ready to move on. So like when I did my most recent rewatch, and I remember that he wanted to have that shouting match they never got. I won't say it's totally unnatural because feelings are complicated, but I was like, oh, this is kind of a surprise. I would consider it misleading if I broke up with somebody. The decision wasn't spur of the moment. It seemed like it was over a long period of time. We had decided to be amicable. We decided we wanted different things. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, I or they were like, "Oh, we never got to yell at each other, right? Mm-hmm. Like we never got to be mad." I would consider that bullshit.
So there's something to it because so Ted is upset about Robin leaving and then like almost immediately getting with this guy, right? Yeah. He makes in that episode he makes a point like, hey, you were on the next guy by the time you landed. Yeah. And she's like, no, like I was very sad about this. And then that kind of reaches like a boiling point in Slapsgiving where they're both stuck in the bedroom. Yep. Where Lily's like, you two are gonna go in the bedroom, you're gonna shut up, you're gonna talk. And this is the part where Robin gets to do her venting. Yeah. So I think it's, in a way, I don't find it as frustrating because they both get a chance to do it this season.
They do get a chance to that.
She's like telling him, she's like, how am I supposed to feel when you're parading all these bitches around? Yeah. And she goes, like, one of them, which got you a tramp stamp tattoo. Yeah. Like, she is also keeping track of these things the same way that he was keeping track of things for her.
That, if I recall correctly, that also does that revealing information in hindsight technique that we talked about in the last episode, where you do flashback, and there were moments where Robin like left the room.
Bang. This is where we get the first
bang, bang, bangity bang.
Yeah.
How could I forget?
With the spoons and everything.
Yeah. So yes, they do make it legitimate because they both get a chance. I do think it makes Ted a little less likable, but that's fine, right? You're allowed to make people unlikable.
You gotta have a three-dimensional character, and
exactly.
For all his pros, Ted has some cons.
He's got some cons.
People shit on Barney for being a womanizer. Yeah. Ted gets around.
Ted gets around, and he gets around with less style than Barney. Right? At least Barney...
He doesn't have the flair.
At least Barney puts on a spectacle, right? Yeah. Ted's kind of lukewarm about it. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think that's the biggest development that we get from Barney. We do get one of my favorite Barney episodes, which is the bracket.
Yes.
Where
it's a March Madness episode.
The March Madness episode. It's one of the episodes that made me appreciate some sort of tournament arc. Yeah. Because seeing some of the plays that he put on, what was the one? He slept with a girl and then he told her he was a twin and he slept with her as Barney and as Larnie. Yeah. And it's also the episode where we get introduced to the fact that someone is fucking with him. Yes. He crossed someone in his past, and now they're out to basically cock block him.
And surprise, surprise, it's Britney Spears.
Which, didn't you say that you also did not realize? I don't know, are you face blind?
I might be bad with faces.
Oh my god.
To be honest with you, I might be bad with faces.
I'm surprised you recognize Katy Perry.
Of course I reckon. Well, first of all, they made a big deal about that. Second of all...
They made a big deal about this!
Well, I didn't see this I did not see this when it premiered.
I didn't either, but I remember hearing it. Yeah. I remember them making a big deal about this season having both Enrique Iglesias and Britney Spears.
So How I Met Your Mother was not really in my brain at this point. By the time the Katy Perry episode comes out, How I Met Your Mother and Katy Perry were very much taking up a lot of real estate in the old cerebro. So yeah, but Britney Spears' character is great.
Abby ditzy as hell.
But it's kind of okay. So here's the thing about that character. When did Britney Spears shave her head? Was it before or after this?
I want to say it was before.
So here's the thing. My whole imagery with Britney Spears was that, like...
This is 2009, right?
This finishes in 2008.
So 2007.
Yeah.
Britney Spears shaved her head February 2007.
Alright, so before this. So here's the thing.
Like less than a year before this.
Yeah, so unjustifiably so, Britney Spears' reputation in popular culture at this point was as a crazy person. Right?
Yeah.
Like, she did not deserve this reputation, but that's what this reputation was.
Yeah.
And Jamie Lynn, I think, is also pregnant around this time. I forget
Probably,
the name.
It was Zoe 101
Zoe
got
101,
canceled because of it.
Right? So, there's just unjust shade on this family. So, even if I was watching at this time and I didn't hear that Britney Spears was going to be in the season, right, I still don't think I would have recognized her, just because of my image of who she was and what she looked like was totally different than what we saw on the show. Mm-hmm. Anyway, to this date, like, that character, I know it is Britney Spears, but I just do not associate them in any way, shape, or form. So good for Britney Spears.
She was pregnant at 16 in December 2007. Okay. A big year for the Spears family.
And the economy.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah.
Everything is going on a wild ride.
We thought 9/11 was the turning point.
This is
2007 may have been the turning point.
For some people, definitely. I feel like some people have had really lasting things because of that 2008 recession.
Yeah.
So again, then that leads to the conflict between Ted and Barney.
Ted and Barney.
So Robin is really down in the dumps. She's vulnerable, which again, some people have issues with what Barney does.
Yes.
But I don't think at that moment he does it out of taking advantage of her.
Correct.
It's a moment of vulnerability on her behalf, and it is a moment of sincere, like, emotion for him, I feel.
The show, at least, never seems to feel that Barney took advantage of her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like anyone really thinks that.
Yeah.
At least none of the other members of the group.
Right.
But I've seen people kind of shit on Barney for that, and I'm like, it's more nuanced than that.
So, while I also have my quibbles with, like, the Ted and Barney fighting arc, but I just kind of hate Friends fighting arcs and all. I hate it when Harry and Ron fight. I hate it when Ron and Hermione fight. Like, those are just always my.
That was like, friends should be friends.
Friends should be friends. I watched a lot of kids anime, and that was the moral of every story. Digimon, Pokemon.
Thano needs to watch more real anime.
Friends should be friends. Anyway, I really enjoy the way that they revealed, though, that Ted was mad.
Do you remember the actual quote?
Something about his mom or sister.
He goes,
why don't you bang her?
Something to the effect of, he's like, no, it's okay. He's like, oh, by the way, my mom's coming into a week next time, in case you want to bang her too.
Yeah. And I bought up until that moment that they were just gonna, like,
let it blow over.
I thought, if anything, if Ted was going to be upset, he was going to be passive Ted, right? And just, like, kind of, brood over it, but no.
No. I was surprised by how long this lasts.
Yeah.
So
up through the finale of this season.
So this happens episode 17.
The goat. Yep.
It's Ted's 30th birthday.
Yeah.
And so that is 4 episodes, right?
Yeah.
It's the end, the whole last,
chunk of the season.
Exactly.
From April 28th, 2008 to May 19th, 2008. So a little less than a month.
Yeah. But, like, as far as, like, how it feels in the show, like, even watching it on binging, like, it still feels like a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like just the way like time passes in the show. It feels longer than May.
Yeah.
But it does give you a sense of, again, like you mentioned yesterday when we recorded season 2.
Mm-hmm.
This also shows Barney's immaturity sometimes.
Yeah.
Where he's like, "Oh, Ted's mad at me. I'm gonna replace him with someone else and make him jealous."
Yeah.
Like he hangs out with Randy,
right,
as his rebound bro, and
what an excellent candidate. The nose bleeding.
the nose bleeding, the dumb innocent
delivery.
face.
Yeah.
And I want to say Lily is the one who tells him like, "You're just doing this because you want to make Ted jealous.
Yeah.
Like, you want Ted back.
Yeah.
And like this might not be the healthy way to go about it.
Right.
And instead, he still tries to get Randy laid.
Exactly.
There's not much of that, but I do really like the resolution of this conflict, though.
In the finale,
after Ted gets into the car accident.
So should we pivot to Ted formally, or should we talk about the car?
Yeah,
accident?
Let's go ahead and pivot to
right.
Ted and basically Stella.
So Stella's my least favorite.
Stella's always been my least favorite.
People hate Zoe. I don't hate any of them. Even without Stella like leaving Ted at the altar.
So I think the reason why I hate Stella more is because I could buy Ted and Stella being together more than I could have bought Zoe and Ted, because they are just drastically different people.
Yeah.
That was a relationship that from the beginning you could tell was doomed.
Ted and Zoe, you mean?
Ted and Zoe.
Yeah.
Like, that Ted is not going to give up his building. He would.
Right.
But he would not have been happy about it. And Zoe was such an activist.
Yeah.
That she would not let him live it down if he did.
Was it formally established that Zoe did not want kids, or that she was like past her prime birthing years?
She has an issue with the captain's daughter.
Yeah. Because
they're really close in age, but I don't think that necessarily negates her wanting kids.
Not negates, but it's kind of heavily implied.
Yeah, I mean,
I always read Zoe, even though it was never explicitly stated. I always read her as if Ted had gone that route, they would not have had kids together.
I think they would. So the way I saw it was she didn't have kids with the captain because the captain is old as dirt.
Yeah. And
he already has a daughter that is close to her age.
Yeah.
So she wouldn't want to have kids because of that age gap and the awkwardness of it. Because at that point, it really would just be her taking care of the kid.
Yeah.
So I figured if Ted and her would have gotten together,
they would have had kids.
Probably would have. If they had managed to stay together long enough.
So wait, so then you noticed more reasons for Ted and Zoe not working, but you still dislike Stella more, or you just
yes, because there's a bigger sense of betrayal with Stella.
I see. So your dislike for Stella doesn't come really until season 4.
It's just all the little things.
Yeah.
Like her unwillingness to compromise with Ted about where to live. That's a season 4 thing.
I think that's a season 4 thing, so we won't get to it. I think she was in the right to still want to live in Jersey.
Yes, but then she pulls the shit with Tony.
Yes.
So that's the thing, right?
Right.
So going back to the season, I really did like her though.
I think she doesn't have personality. I think they've got chemistry. I think she laughs at
They have chemistry.
Yes, but I don't think... I can't describe traits of Zoe. She's blonde. She's a doctor. Right?
She's hot.
Or no, it was Stella. I don't think Stella's hot.
You don't think Stella's hot?
I do not think Stella... Not even in like a MILF way. Sorry, children.
I think Stella's pretty hot.
No. This is our most objectifying episode, by the way. We spent our opening comments on Lily talking about...
Just about her hair, and that she's hot as Lily.
And now we're debating whether or not Stella's hot. I neither find Stella physically attractive. I don't think she has a personality. I think she's nice. I think she laughs at Ted's jokes. It's one of those things.
So I would say she is... I would say that I still find her hot, but I still think she's one of Ted's worst love interests.
Yeah.
And that is even considering Jeanette. one of his love interests.
Yeah.
So that's saying something.
Yeah.
But yes, I do agree. She is boring.
Yeah.
And I think that's a product of how they frame her, as she's so busy. She is fully devoted to her family, which on paper is a good thing.
Yeah.
As part of a comedy show.
Right.
Kind of dull.
Yes. Oh, fully devoted to her daughter and her career.
And she is hung up. I noticed that the most this season, or this rewatch. She is hung up as hell on Tony.
Yeah.
Like, any chance that she gets to mention Tony in this season too.
Yeah.
She brings it up.
That's interesting. I did not notice that.
Yeah. She's like, oh, Tony did this. Tony would never do that. Tony would never do this.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm just like, oh man, these are some red flags.
Do you know if they had planned? Well, so here, I think they still had it as a contingency that she could be the mother if necessary.
Yes.
Correct? Yes. I think it's hilarious that in season 4 you get the image of what their kids would look like, and they're these like blonde little fuckers. So she's not. But do you know if it was in the cards back at this point that she would leave him at the altar, or is this something they thought of later?
I think as soon as they got greenlit for a future season, that was out.
Yeah. Here's what makes this season,
especially with it happening.
Yeah.
Like so early in the season. Here's
what makes this season confusing is that hold on, let me. So according to the Wikipedia, I don't think we meet Stella until episode 13.
Yeah, we meet Stella late in the game.
And then there's hospital drama with her as well, right? The premiere of season 4 has what it has. I won't get into that yet. But this is what kind of makes this season a bit structurally weird for me, is it inserts that relationship in the middle of the season, which I get why, because you have to deal with the Robin-Ted breakup, and then you take some time to establish this. But in my timeline, in my head, it just always feels wonky. You know what I mean?
Is it more wonky than how we met Victoria in season 1? Because Victoria was endgame if the show didn't get picked up.
But at least Victoria is contained in season 1 until, later, right?
Yeah, but also if you consider timeline wise, right?
Yeah.
We don't meet Victoria until episode 12. No. Yeah. Technically 13, because we see her at the end of 12.
Right.
But we don't actually get to meet her until later on.
Until 13.
So that checks out with Stella.
But at least that's put away, right?
Yes.
Yes. Whereas this keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So bringing this back to Ted, right? I feel like even though he gets very, very serious about Stella, I feel like deep down in his subconscious, he's somewhere in the middle of either settling or still sort of playing the field with Stella. I don't think, even though Ted is willing to marry her, I think deep down in his heart of hearts he knows this is not the ideal.
I mean, that's kind of proven in the last episode where he gets into the car crash.
Yeah.
Right? He is having these doubts of where am I going to be in, I think, what he said, 6 months?
Yeah.
Where Stella wants him to go to a wedding with him and he's freaking out.
Yeah.
And I feel like with any of his other love interests that are considered serious, I don't think that's ever a factor.
Which dovetails nicely with the Marshall Lily arc, right? Yeah. It's funny how fast you feel the pressure, and I don't even mean this as a bad thing, but it's funny how fast you feel the pressure to sort of like compromise your ideals, and then how far Ted is willing to go into compromising his ideals for this ideal woman.
And I mean, he was willing to compromise with her.
Yeah. But it was a compromise.
It was a compromise, right?
Yeah.
She was not willing to compromise with him.
Yeah.
It was more of a he would settle,
right,
and she would just do her thing.
Yeah.
As opposed to with her and Tony.
Yeah.
Like, she fucking moves back to New York for him.
Yeah.
Right? So, it shows that, that it's just not a good mix with those two of them.
Correct.
And so then in that episode, the last episode, that's where we get the reunion between Ted and
Barney. Both in the hospital. one much more gravely.
I love that scene so much, where they're all getting the phone calls. They're all doing something, right?
Yeah,
something important, except for Marshall.
Yeah.
Right. Lily is teaching. Robin is getting makeup on for her anchor job or whatever. And Marshall is just like in his underwear playing Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
And it's like, like somber music. They're all running in slow motion. And they get to the hospital and Ted's just sitting there eating Jell-O. Like, hey guys.
So if that narrative beat was not played off for a laugh, like if Ted really was gravely injured, I'm not saying that would have been a show ruiner, but that would, because it's very...
So like if you had panned in and Ted looked like Barney.
Yeah, if Ted was seriously in like life or death drama and they chose to play it off like a soap opera, ooh, that could have done some damage to that.
I don't think it plays like a soap opera. I think it plays like a serious tone though.
But the trope of like the bus crash coming out of nowhere is very much a soap opera. Trope, where there's no foreshadowing that this kind of thing is going to happen, but they want to kill off a character. Boom, they're going to like hit him with a car. Right? It did very much come out of nowhere.
One of the things that I noticed, this is something that I noticed, not this last viewing, but recently.
Yeah.
When he's talking to the kids, he's like, sometimes like a small decision can change your life forever. He's like, I don't know what would happen if I got in that cab, and it's like a normal cab. Yeah. That cab, it's a normal cab. He's like, God knows what would happen if it was in this cab.
Yeah.
And they show like a sketchy brown car that says taxi written on it with paint. But later, when Ted is back, they're like reading the newspaper. Marshall is reading the newspaper, and in the back there's an article. There was like naked taxi cab driver strikes again. And it's just like a really funny like throwaway gag.
I've never noticed that.
Next time you watch it, you'll catch it. He's just like sitting there reading a newspaper.
Well, it's interesting because so jumping ahead, it's another one of those reflection on a random series of events that leads him to the reunion with Stella.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's cool how they kind of parallel that finale of season 3 and then whenever that happens in 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
4. Yeah, it's at the end of 4. But yeah, I never noticed the headline.
That's funny. Yeah,
that is funny.
It's really funny.
Yeah.
But so then we get the reunion with Ted and Barney. We see that Lily called Ted.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lily called Barney.
Yeah.
And he rushes out to go find Ted.
And then
he looks the right way when crossing the street, but the bus is going the wrong way.
Yep.
And he just gets pancaked.
He gets knocked out. So, do you think Ted grows by the end of the season? I think Barney does. I think any step toward more of a life of commitment is growth for Barney. Mm-hmm. Right? I feel like Ted, and maybe this is one of the frustrating things about the season, is he kind of picks up the pieces of his tattered relationship with Barney. But if you look at him at the beginning of the season, if you look at him at the end of the season, I don't know if there's necessarily like growth there.
So there is growth in the sense that he is willing to, and it sounds bad when they say willing to settle down with Stella.
Yeah.
But I mean the fact that I think in my heart of hearts, I believe that if Ted and Stella had gotten married, even if they were not 100% meant to be, I think he could have lived a happy life with her.
Yeah, I think it could have been fine.
I think that is some growth.
Yeah.
Because I think if we look at season 2, if Ted and Robin had gotten married, he would not have been happy.
No.
There would have been a lot of issues.
Nor would she.
Yeah. Whereas with Ted and Stella, I feel like there is a chance of happiness there. Then season 4 takes that growth and kind of dismantles it, right?
Right.
We'll get more into that when we talk about season 4.
Right.
So I think there is some growth, not anything like drastic, nothing game changing.
Yeah.
But he does grow a little bit. He learns that, even though his relationship with like Barney is not perfect and Barney is a handful, there is growth in that sense, I feel.
I feel that Ted actually ends season 2 in a very mature place. And I think he's not at desperation by the end of season 3, but I feel like he's at the cusp of desperation.
Okay.
Right, so I don't see as much growth. That's why I kind of refer to these as like the middling seasons, where Ted's just kind of like kicking around the can, looking for the one, going from girl to girl. That's not a bad thing, right? That's just the state of how the show is. But I think that now that I've gotten a chance to talk about this season, Ted for me is like the least interesting part of this season.
Mm-hmm.
Even Marshall and Lily. I mean, I enjoyed our conversation about Marshall and Lily more so than I enjoyed our conversation about Ted, to be honest with you.
But that's kind of also a product of having a show where you can make the argument that Ted is the main character.
Yeah,
but they do a really good job at making all of them feel like they could be main characters.
Well, but then also how the show was received, I would need to go back and look at more hard data.
Mm-hmm.
But like for casual, especially in like pre-streaming, where you're just kind of aware that this is just a show on CBS. It's pretty popular, right? And maybe you'll tune in every once in a while if you're a very, very casual viewer. I feel like Josh Radnor, even at this point, is the least famous of that crew. I feel like audience reaction at this time would have had more investment of all the other characters besides Ted.
Okay.
Even though he's the star of the show, so to speak. But I would have to look at like facts. I know this, right? When I was first aware of the show, before I started watching it, I thought Neil Patrick Harris was the main character.
I did too.
Yep.
That was my impression for the longest time.
Yeah.
So looking at Rotten Tomatoes,
mm-hmm.
as far as this is also very like not a very good like metric necessarily.
Right.
It's got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes from 5 critics. 90, but here's the one that I feel like it's a little bit more telling. 93% from audience. That's like 600 reviews.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I still feel like
not a bad season.
Not a bad season.
Not a bad season at all.
It still feels right.
Wait, this season doesn't have moist, does it?
Moist. Moist.
That's not this season,
moist.
Is
it? It might be season 4.
Okay, and I don't want to miss moist.
Ah man, what is that episode?
I don't know, but that's fine. We'll get there when we get there.
It is around here though, so
yeah.
I can chop this out if I need to. Oh, one thing before I forget. This season is also where we see how everybody met.
Yeah, how I met everybody else.
We have Blah Blah show up.
Yeah.
We are introduced to the thing that I proudly wore as a t-shirt, the Hot Crazy Scale.
Yes.
The Hot Crazy Scale slaps.
The Hot Crazy Scale, and you know what? It's not true in and of itself, but crazy is crazy.
Crazy is crazy.
That's all I'll say. Crazy is crazy.
We may have missed that episode.
Yeah. Hot Crazy Scale?
No, that's this episode. That's this season.
So which one are you looking for?
I'm looking for...
Moist?
Yeah.
I don't think it's in season 2.
I think it is, because it says here that in episode staff, the title of Barney's play can be seen in the playbill of an audience member in the background. So it's gotta be that season.
Oh shit.
We missed it.
We missed Moist.
Moist. Alright, anyway.
Yeah.
Anything else before we wrap up this season? And move on to our top
list?
fives.
No. I think it's list time.
List time. Alright,
well,
so
here, so I will say, I think this season so I'm looking at my season ranking list.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, from worst to best, I had 9, 8, 7, 1, 2, 3, 6, 4, 5.
Mm-hmm.
I think I feel comfortable moving 3 below 1 and 2 at this point.
Yeah, I think I might keep mine where it is right now.
Towards the bottom.
Towards the bottom.
Yeah.
Again, and it's not that I dislike it.
Right.
It's just... It's not... I feel like it's not as strong. I feel like it's 95, not as...
A 95% is lower than a 96%.
Exactly.
Both are A's.
I was watching something recently, and they were talking about, like, ranking things, and they're like, just because you're ranking something by nature means something has to be lower.
Yeah.
And it's not always a bad thing.
Yeah.
So today, for our list, we are doing our top 5 Marshall moments, or sappy Marshall moments. So let's go ahead and start with Thano.
Yeah. So at number 5.
Okay.
Marshall taking Robin to the Hoser hut.
Oh, you got that one too.
And getting the crew to sing "Let's Go to the Mall."
Okay.
That whole episode I loved. What is it? The walleye something.
The Walleye Saloon. That's
the Minnesota bar.
The Minnesota bar.
Yeah, I could have put that whole episode in there, just the fact that he, his Minnesota nostalgia. But I think the culmination of the goofiness and sappiness is him taking her to the Hoser hut.
Trying to make her feel welcome.
Yes.
Right? That whole season, I feel like it's where Robin is kind of hitting bottom.
Yeah.
Or at least she feels like she's hitting bottom. So having Marshall...
Well, then that's the first episode where they hang out, right?
Yeah.
That's a plot point in the episode, is they never hang out.
They never hang out.
Yeah. A one-off pie chart of my favorite...
of my favorite charts and my charts of my favorite pies?
Yeah.
No. It's a bar chart of my
graph.
favorite pies and a pie chart of my favorite bars.
Yes.
So Marshall and his charts.
One thing I will not say that has not made the list is the fish jokes for me. I'm curious if it's in there for you.
It is not.
But it's not in my list. It's very interesting. All right. All of these 3 could be number 1.
Okay.
My favorite episode for a while was the Best Burger episode.
Okay.
And a lot of that rested on the Best Burger speech, and just that episode made my mouth water. But Best Burger speech, it could win number 1 in many days. He gave 5 minutes to his vows.
Yeah. He's like, you got your vows off the internet.
Yeah. Auld Lang Syne at the airport.
Yeah.
Lily. That's a tearjerker.
Marshall and Lily at the airport.
I love that episode. And then number 1 is 2 in 1, because I feel like it's very hard to have one without the other for me. Night Night Lily, but really the crown jewel is Night Night Little Marvin.
Night Night Little Marvin.
Because of how involved that lullaby is.
With the tuba.
With the tuba.
But the xylophone.
But you know that was all Marshall. Even though it's Lily playing, you know.
Yep, that's all his idea.
All his idea. I will play that shit on YouTube. Some honorable misses for me were, like I said, The Fish. Best Night Ever.
Best Night Ever?
The song. The Best Night Ever song.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Fiero.
The Fiero, yep.
Honorable misses.
But
those are my top 5.
Very good.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. We are going to get a lot of crossover here.
Yeah.
Mine are not in any particular order, at least not when I listed them.
All right, I'll write yours down.
My number 1, if I were to put them in an order. So my number 1.
This is your best, or this is your?
Oh, you know what? Let's go from least then to highest. Right. I think something that really shows peak Marshall is Beercules. Something about naked Marshall running around, I think, is like, this is where we see true Marshall. Yeah. Like, no barriers.
His glory days that he's left behind him.
Exactly. Yeah. Where he plays Edward 40 Hands.
Edward 40 Hands. Yeah.
I still want to play Edward 40 Hands.
Yes.
Before I hit 35.
We maybe should do that this holiday season.
This holiday season?
Uh-oh. Why not? We've ladies and gentlemen at home, ladies and gentlemen and non-binary folk, we've missed effectively the last 2 Christmases.
Yeah.
I feel like we got to go hard on this one, barring a big spike in the
in the vids.
Yeah.
So next is the Best Burger in New York.
Best Burger.
It's nice. I like it. And I identify with this because I also am searching for a replacement for my Best Burger because the place that I loved shut down.
Also, there's just a genuine appreciation when someone really likes food. Like, there's just a genuine, and you recognize that in the person.
Yeah.
There's just genuine human empathy.
So good.
So good.
And when you find the one burger, and here's the funny thing. Yeah. What you might consider to be the best burger is probably not what somebody else would consider.
Yes.
But you can see the appreciation they have for that particular burger.
Now, have you had a burger that's lived up to the hype of like a hyped up burger place, and you're like, ooh, this was as good as people said it was?
I want to say yes, but I cannot remember.
Mine is Small Cheval in Chicago. Cheval. Yeah, Small Cheval. The bigger restaurant is Au Cheval. Small Cheval is its like little spin-off, same burgers, but it's a smaller restaurant. We went at like 11 p.m. on a Tuesday.
Fuck.
And there was still a line, but that's pretty much the only time you're not going to find an outrageous line.
Damn.
Worth it.
Huh.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I would say the burger, which is ridiculous, right? The burger that I had at Gillerson's.
Yeah.
The giant challenge burger that I had.
Oh, I miss my Weeby Jammin' burger. Continue though.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, non-binary folk, peanut butter jam.
Peanut butter on burgers.
Yeah. Jalapeno and plantain. This thing was delicious, and nobody else was ordering it but me.
At Colonial, they have the chef's brunch burger. It had a fried egg.
Yeah.
And it had peanut butter.
Ooh.
And it was
so good.
It was one of the best burgers I've ever had, and it's gone. Anyway, one that I have for Super Sappy Marshall is that episode where they're talking about wedding stuff. And they're like, hey, what's that speech? Love is patient. And Marshall just recites all of 1 Corinthians. And they're like, yeah, that's a dud. Let's not do that. That I feel like
about that moment.
That was great.
Yeah.
Number 2 is taking Robin to the Hoser Hut. So again, we agree on that one.
Yeah.
And my number 1 is the marching band.
Yeah.
To pick up Lily from the airport.
Yeah.
That is.
Marshall.
And I think as far as what I would consider like a.
That could be a GOAT episode.
That is a GOAT episode because you got 3 very different stories.
Yeah.
From people.
Yeah.
And they're all good.
Is that season 4 or 5?
That is might be season 5. It's called 3 Days of Snow.
Yeah.
It might be season 4 now that I'm thinking about it, but it is season 4, 3 Days of Snow. So we can talk about it soon. Yeah. I like that all of the little like bits of the story, they all feel equally as important.
Yes.
And then the way they all connect at the end is also very.
Yeah, and also just a well done Auld Lang Syne is a tearjerker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also one of the first instances of Marshall and Robin hanging out.
There you go.
That might be the first time they hang out together, like just the two of them.
Just the 2 of them. Yeah, that's true.
And one of my honorable mentions is the episode where Marshall goes to his dad's grave.
Yep. And
has like a tailgate party.
Tailgate party. The whole town.
Yeah.
The whole town takes his barbecue.
So
yeah,
that's mine.
That's a real good one.
A real good one.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
So I think one thing we've accomplished by this end is you can just objectively not say that this show is a bad show.
Yeah.
Like you've had 3 really good seasons, even if the rest were shit, right? I mean, that's 3 seasons. 3 really good seasons. Is impressive.
3 consecutive
good seasons.
Good seasons. Yeah. There are not a lot of shows that you can say that about.
Yeah.
There's always a show that you're like, ooh.
Yeah.
Like when I look back at like Mandalorian.
I love both seasons of Mandalorian.
I don't love season 2. I like it.
Yeah.
But there's a lull in the middle.
For sure.
But I mean, I could still be like, it's okay.
Yeah.
I would recommend it.
Yeah.
But this, I don't see a down.
No down.
Not in this.
No down.
It's all up.
All rise. All rise.
All rise. I had to make sure to put my fingers down.
He didn't do the salute.
I did not.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. We'll be back with season 4 very soon.
In maybe a movie film.
Yes. We gotta figure out what to go see next.
There's
not a lot coming out.
We gotta look at our AMC apps.
Thor's coming out.
But I don't know when y'all are gonna get this.
So I'm looking at season 3 will be out probably tomorrow. Because we didn't have one this week.
Right.
This will probably come out either next Friday.
Yeah.
So it'll be a week from Friday.
So all our millions of fans are getting a twofer. Well, no, never mind. Our millions of fans are going to get an episode soon.
Yes. Yeah. Unless I can do it on Monday. I don't know. We'll see. We'll figure it out. All right, everybody. Have a good afternoon.
I'm Thano.
I'm Javier.
Bye.
Bye.